Welcome to Broke Horse Moms, the podcast for all of us who thought our kids riding horses was just a phase. Turns out it wasn't, and honestly, I am so glad we were wrong. I'm your host, Angie Trueblood, the OG Broke Horse Mom, and I'm here to laugh, learn, and figure out this wild, wonderful sport right alongside you. Let's giddy up, friends. All right, Elizabeth, welcome to Broke Horse Moms. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Angie. I am thrilled to be here. I cannot wait to have this conversation.
Yeah, we have been talking horse things on LinkedIn, I feel like for well over a year now. So I know my listeners are going to be very excited to hear the story of a horse mom who raised a kid in the sport, even through college, because I know I have tons of questions about it. So I know our listeners probably do as well. Um, Tell me a little bit, first of all, about your daughter, Samantha, and how she ever even got into riding.
Okay. It's Samantha she's 28 now, so it's fun to go back and think about when she started riding. I rode as a kid and I was always involved in the sport, even through college and, after college, I tried to incorporate it into my life. And so when we had a daughter, my husband sort of had the thing in the back of his mind that he knew eventually this was going to be a thing. And I didn't push it. I just waited to see, is she interested? Is she not interested? And I had started riding when I was in fifth grade. So I had it in my head that if we could wait till fifth grade, that would be ideal because I knew what would happen. And by third grade, she was just like, what is up? Why can't I start riding yet? So we started then.
Okay.
And you start with once a week lessons, and a year later, you're like, what just happened?
Literally. I mean, I don't even know if we were every week to start and it just snowballed. So what discipline did she start in and was she riding, I'm assuming local shows to begin with?
So, Samantha, we live in Vermont, in northern
Okay.
Vermont. So, the horse community is a lot smaller. I grew up in Massachusetts on the North Shore outside of Boston. So that's a big hunter jumper equitation market. And so that was the discipline that I rode. And so she was also involved in that world. There's a strong community here in the hunter jumper space. And the funny thing is that when she did start to show, and when we got more serious about it, we went back. A lot of the shows we would go to, the A shows, are in Massachusetts. And I still have a strong relationship with my trainer because she was a super influential adult in my life from like the age of 12. So, I went back to these horse shows and it was all the same trainers. And my mind was blown. And, I went to school, 2 hours away from home. I moved to Atlanta after I graduated. We moved to Vermont. So, like, I don't see people from my childhood really. And so
Right.
going back into the horse show world and seeing these same people, 25, 30 years later, it was crazy, but it
Oh, I
was
bet.
great because it really felt like coming home, and getting to sort of introduce her to that world was great.
So she starts riding, loves it, is showing locally, kind of graduating to rated shows.
Yes.
So you guys are independently wealthy? Is that what you're telling me?
Exactly. No. And the
Okay,
big
so
problem yeah. The big problem here in northern Vermont is that there aren't a lot of school horses because those programs just can't survive up here, because there aren't enough people. And so the
okay.
biggest problem was finding her a ride. And I know you've been through this. Trying to look
Mhm.
for horses is a huge thing. And we had purchased a pony at one point. Unfortunately, that pony passed away in a terrible accident.
Ugh,
And we were really kind of stuck for a horse. And this is crazy, but what I ended up doing is there was a woman in the barn, and this just goes to show you the crazy part of Broke Horse Moms. There was a
okay.
woman in the barn who had invented a product, and it's called the one knot hairnet. Hairnets that you have to wear at horse shows. They
Uh-huh.
used to be the lunch lady variety of hairnets that had two metal clamps, one in the front and one in the back. And when you wear a helmet all day, you get the big dent in your forehead.
Oh,
You get the helmet hairnet headache. And she was bound and determined to make a new hairnet. And she had spent 7 years making this product, getting it patented because she was terrified somebody would just steal her design.
mhm.
And we were always at the barn together talking about this. And I'm like, you need to do this and you need to do that. And you need to get a website. You need to, and talking about all the things she should do to launch this thing. And she was terrified, because she was the master of her domain in the product creation, but when it came to the launch and the marketing,
Right.
she didn't know what to do. Fortunately, she had this wonderful horse named Mandavi, and she actually got him. Her first husband died in a motorcycle accident. She bought Mandavi as part of her healing process, and they showed up and down the East Coast for like 5 years. And
Okay.
he was very well known. He had a great, huge personality. And Michelle had started leasing him out to young girls, because that was what Mandavi wanted his job to be.
Mhm.
She actually talked to a horse psychic who told her that,
Okay.
and so he had been leased out, 6 or 7 times for $30,000 a
Wow.
year. Yes. And so as Michelle and I kept talking, she could clearly see Samantha, was kind of in this rough spot where she didn't have a ride. And she eventually said to me, "Would you be willing to do a trade?" And I said, "Yeah."
Yeah,
Two
100%.
full-time jobs, no problem. So I was, very fortunate that Michelle and I put together a contract. It was a 2-year deal, and I launched their business. And Samantha, in exchange, got to ride this amazing horse for 2 years. It built her confidence. I mean, just tremendous, tremendous opportunity.
So, you said something early on that I think a lot of moms listening are gonna resonate with, is this idea of feeling stuck. And I feel like that might be the same language I used in the very first episode where I shared my broke horse mom story. Is there was a time when we felt stuck because the barn that we were at had amazing horses, but none were a fit at that time for Chloe. So I think it's really reassuring to hear, we've all been exposed to, oh, you can do barn work in exchange for something, but I think it can maybe expand outside of what we are used to thinking, well, what are some of the skills and talents either us or our kiddos have that we might be able to develop a trade with?
Absolutely, absolutely. Last night, Angie, I was telling my husband that we were going to talk today, and we were talking back through some of the things that we did to make money and to support her. We bought a trailer, so he trailered horses constantly. It was not unusual at all for him to do a Thursday night run down from here to Saratoga and back,
Like for
because
extra money?
for extra money. He
Okay.
has worked in aviation for 30 years. He's a mechanic. He took a side gig job de-icing planes at night before they left Burlington. I was braiding. I vividly remember being at a Hits horse show, which I know you were at a Hits horse show recently too.
Yeah.
I got up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Paul stayed with the kids, and I went and braided 5 horses before the horse show day started, because that was like $250.
Yeah. So what's the
And
going rate for braiding? Because Chloe's trainer has mentioned before that she used to braid.
yes. Yeah, it depends. It's interesting. A lot of barns have done away with it because it's a skill that a lot of kids don't pick up
Yeah.
anymore, and they know it's an added expense. So a lot of local horse shows have just done away with it, which is kind of a shame, because it does add such a sense of like specialness to a horse show.
Mhm.
But I totally understand the cost issue. But it's
Yeah.
something a kid can learn. I mean, I learned when I was 12. I took a lesson, and then I braided that same day. So
Yeah.
I literally have done it most of my life. I would say the going rate is $50 for a mane and probably 75 for a tail, but it
Okay.
can really depend on the market. It's more at an A show. It's could be less at a local show.
Yeah.
And it's just a great thing to learn. I mean, even Samantha, she was smarter than me. She was always like, "Oh, I just can't do it." And I'm like, "You can do it." And then when she was in college riding on the team, who was braiding? It was Samantha. So, I was the fool.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I took it to like a whole other level. I ended up, I had started a blog called She Rides, I Pay. And that got picked up by the Chronicle of the Horse, which was super fun. And then an ad agency actually reached out to me to do some writing for some of their clients, which I did. And that was great. So I constantly had all these little side gigs going.
Yeah.
But it eventually evolved into I had left my full time job, and I got a trailer, and I made a store, and I took the store to horse shows. I don't know what I
We
was
saw
thinking.
one. We saw one at the last hits. It was amazing.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was, I mean, it was super fun, and honestly, that's the in the back of my head when I did that was, "I'm gonna figure out this college situation," because it was really unclear. How does college equestrian work? Is it a thing? Are there scholarships? is this a real deal? Because
Mhm,
in New England, it really is an unknown. It's the schools, there's not a ton of them. There's about 27. I think they're close to 30 now, but it's mostly in the Southeast and then, in the West. So in New England, there was a ton of myths and misconceptions and almost just like some snobbery about it.
mhm.
But I was bound and determined to find out.
I do not think that is just in the Northeast. I think there's confusion around everywhere. So Samantha was performing very well then,
Yeah.
right? She was an excellent rider. Can you give a little perspective? Just, I remember when Chloe wanted to start like pushing to bigger shows, and I literally texted her trainer and I was like, "Hey girl, like I'm willing for us to make sacrifices if she's good. Like if she's just average, can you tap me out now, please?" So like how did you know that it was, this sounds horrible, but like worth
No,
investing in and making all these sacrifices for?
that's a great question to ask, Angie. And a lot of parents opt out, and I understand that. I was fortunate that I had been in the sport, so I had a lot of innate knowledge. And if
Yeah.
you see someone in your community who has been there and done that, tap into that because and I hate to say this, but not every trainer is going to give you an honest answer.
Mhm.
A few other things that we focused on was we would sit down at the beginning of the year and talk to Samantha and say, okay, what are your goals? And she would say, I want to qualify for this final. I want to go to this horse show. I want to qualify for this thing. And we would look at those opportunities. And for example, like Marshall and Sterling has a series and a championship, but that's based on points. And the more
Mhm.
points you have, it's easier to qualify. But if you do something like the New England Medal Final, which is something that's been around since I was a teenager and has been emulated by other communities around the country, you win the class once and you're qualified to go. That's a
Oh.
lot less expensive than
Mhm.
chasing points. So just be careful. Look at things like that because that makes a huge difference. There's a Massachusetts equestrian or equitation final. Same thing. You win one class, you're qualified to go. And those are very prestigious, very fun finals to go to. So look at that.
Where would people who are not in New England, I mean, would I just Google that? Like,
There's usually I know, it's like it's a great question. Usually there's a hunter jumper organization in most regions.
mhm,
This is something that I learned the deeper I got into the industry side of things. So you can look for what are the associations, the organizations. I mean, Pony Club has a national organization, 4-H has a national organization. USHJA, the US Hunter Jumper Association, that's the
mhm.
national association. So you can kind of start there, look at the on the national level, and then go down because as equestrian sports have become more popular, there's now high school programs, there's elementary school programs, there's jumper programs, there's dressage programs, there's eventing programs, there's so much more. So a great place to start is looking at that association, the associations that exist, because that will teach you some of the things that they offer and what's available.
So, as we look to colleges, Chloe's a sophomore, so I have all the questions, but the main one is she rides in the jumper disciplines and she'll go ahead and compete in the hunters. Like she rides some of her trainers' ponies and hunters, but she has a heart for jumpers. And so when I've looked at colleges, the majority of what I see are the IHSA, which is very similar to IEA, where you kind of go to the
Yes.
show, hop on someone else's horse, go do your thing, and then that's how you're judged. Is that the bulk of college opportunities, if you will?
Yes and no. I
Okay.
want to say a few things about IHSA. IHSA is a huge national organization that's run by Peter Chacon. I'm probably not saying that correctly. And I have met him. I've been to the finals. I took my store there. I did some workshops with them. So I know the organization well. And it's fantastic in the respect that it's everywhere. There's probably 500
Right.
teams across the country. The bad news is there's not money attached to that, and often you will have to pay for your kid to participate in IHSA.
Mhm.
However, if you have a kid who grew up with horses and is terrified about going to school and losing that, IHSA is fantastic for that kid because they're going to
Okay.
be able to keep riding. They can show it's boys and girls, which I think is great.
Yeah.
And it's a really strong national organization, but they do like to falsely advertise that, oh, you don't have to pay. Some schools you don't. I
Okay.
mean, if you go to a school that's a private college, they may fund that program, but most don't.
But so
But it's
there's no real, like, scholarship money in the IHSA. There might be attached from the academic side for the school, but not really the riding program.
100% yes.
Okay.
And the good news is there are more programs now, like UVM, the University of Vermont, right here. They have a dressage team, they have an eventing team. That's new. That's a new thing that I haven't seen a lot of, but more schools are getting into that. They're having eventing teams, they have dressage teams. But again, those are usually private pay. And if you have that kid who you think is not going to get through college unless they can keep riding, that may be a fantastic solution.
Yeah.
But there is no money attached to it. Hopefully that'll change someday. But the reality is the only money on the table comes from NCAA. And that's the organization that we all know is the collegiate association, just like the football players and the basketball players. So even the
Okay.
idea that this existed for equestrians, I had the hardest time even grasping that because, we're just so used to like, oh, how much? What do I write the check out for? So, that's why I was on a mission to really learn about this. And why does this even exist at all? I'll tell you, it's because of Title IX.
Okay.
So a lot of times people complain about NCAA, but one of the very good things that happened with NCAA is Title IX because that required there to be the same number of spots for women's sports as there is for men's. So if the football team has a roster of 110, there has to be 110 other opportunities for women. It doesn't matter what sports they're in, it can be spread out over sports, but those opportunities have to exist.
Okay.
And that's the reason why NCAA Equestrian exists, because they were trying to find sports for women, and equestrian is one of the most popular. So when we got involved, there were 24 teams. And that doesn't get you to championship status, which is a NCAA designation. You need to have 40 teams for that. So there were a few scary moments where there was a lot of press about NCAA equestrian is going to die because they don't have 40 teams. And that happened to be the year that I got involved. And they had a committee that was working on that and doing a fantastic job. So they're getting a lot closer to that 40 team commitment that they need to meet. So I think that will happen. So the
Okay.
program exists, it's here to stay, and there is money available, but not everybody gets a scholarship.
So, what sort of discipline, like, what do you do? What do you ride on the NCAA equestrian teams?
So it's a fascinating model. I love it. As somebody who grew up riding who didn't have any money, I love it because it is one thing that we don't see in horse shows. It's fair.
Oh, I love it.
It's a
The
level
jumper
playing
the
field.
jumper world is fair, I feel like, for the
True,
most part.
very
Yeah.
true. 100%. So the NCAA teams are divided up in two. There's a Western side and an English side. So right there, you're breaking all these barriers that the snooty English girls have about the Western girls. They're wearing makeup. Why do they have all those flashy colors?
Yeah.
So I love it. They put them all together and it's like, two aliens meeting each other for the first time. So there's
That's
basically four
amazing.
events that take place. Two are Western, two are English. And the interesting thing on the English side is, you've got the jumping, and that's based on your equitation. And then you have the flat, which is they're doing dressage patterns, but it's judged on their equitation,
Okay.
which to me is fascinating because to be able to ride dressage successfully, you have to be a really good rider. You have to have outstanding communication with your horse. You have to understand the movements and the way the horse's body works. And it's something that you really have to study and practice. But the judging is based on your equitation. So I just love that it combines sort of like the hard mental side and the hard physical side. And that was where Samantha really excelled. So,
Okay.
she didn't have any idea about what that meant, and it doesn't really matter because however you come to be on a team, they're going to turn you into the rider that they want once you get there. And for what I've seen with my son, the same thing exists in lacrosse and football and other sports too. So for a situation like you have with Chloe, who loves jumpers, the jumping at NCAA is like 3 foot 3 3, so it's aggressive. I mean, the courses are hard, and the way the horse thing works is each school has their own horses, and you draw out of a hat, and you
Okay.
compete against another girl who is riding the same horse. So you're doing exactly the same thing on the same horse.
Oh. Oh, I like that. Well, it's actually very interesting to hear you say this because the more that I've learned about like the what next, what are the opportunities that riders have, what I keep hearing from a lot of folks or what's playing in my mind is this idea of cross training across different disciplines is so important. So Chloe came from a jumper barn. Her trainer has always been a hunter trainer of ponies and horses. Her background is all in the hunter space. But we do have a woman at our barn who has trained dressage, and Chloe has taken a lesson from her. So I think it's really important, even though our kids are like, I really like this one thing, this is all I want to do. Like, think of what did I like when I was 15 that I thought I was going to do forever? Like, thank goodness I had exposure to other things. So I think that might be a really important piece of this conversation is trying to encourage our kids to be open minded. If the goal is riding horses, then we need to find opportunities to do that and be open minded as to what they might look like.
100%. That's a great attitude to have.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate in Vermont in that because we don't have a ton going on up here, our trainers in the area were really good about bringing up clinicians. So things
Mm,
like doing clinics, which again are an expense, and you may actually travel to do those because you're getting exposure to other trainers, to other styles of riding. It's a great thing to do. And sometimes you're even riding someone else's horse in a
yeah.
clinic. So those are great opportunities. And I agree with you 100%. They should be cross training. And Chloe as a jumper, she could be really attractive to a coach who has a jumper spot to fill. I mean, sometimes it is a matter of where are the holes on the team and what are they trying to fill? What are they recruiting for?
Yeah.
And they can fix her equitation. And I don't mean fix as in she's
I know what
doing
you
it
mean.
wrong, but they have
Optimize
a
it.
very specific style that they like.
Yeah.
And a lot of traditional dressage riders would struggle to be on an NCAA team because dressage riders traditionally don't worry about their equitation. So
Mm,
they don't necessarily learn the same way that, an equitation kid learns how to position their body. So that might be interpreted as more of a challenge for a coach to overcome than looking at somebody like Chloe. If Chloe has, shown in different places, if she's ridden a
mhm.
bunch of different horses, one of the most attractive skill sets to a college coach is riding different horses.
Yeah.
And again, just to do a shout out to all the Brook horse moms, what a college coach doesn't care for is the kid who rode one six-figure horse their entire career, who never tacked up their own horse, who never braided their own horse, and who dolloped around in the hunter ring and had a ton of blue ribbons.
Yeah.
Pass, hard pass, because
Mhm.
that's not what they need. There's no role for that on a college team. And the kids who get in that are like that, they end up quitting within the first year because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the scholarship opportunities because that was one thing you and I connected on was that you were able to find or help Samantha find these opportunities at that NCAA level. So tell me how that happened, where she ended up going. Let's hear the bright spot of the story.
Sure. Samantha, even though she was a straight A student, she was terrified of the whole college search. She kind of refused to participate and she was just being a teenager. And I was over it. It was her senior year. And in October, she dislocated her shoulder again. She had surgery in January. And it was February. And we were like, you going to go to college, maybe? And she had applied at several places,
Yeah.
but she had no idea what she wanted to do. And we went to this camp at Auburn University down in Alabama, and we flew into Atlanta. It was actually a great trip because we went to a college whose name I'm not going to remember. It was a small private school. They had this awesome Harry Potter, gorgeous campus. And that was for an IHSA team. And that was a very competitive IHSA team. And the coach was a complete disaster. But as soon as she saw Samantha's video, she was like, wait, who are you? And she wanted to talk to Samantha. And Samantha was totally turned off because the barn was a mess. But it was a great contrast compare because then the next day we went to Auburn and we were there for 3 days doing this camp. And the great thing about the camp there was that the coaches sat the parents down away from the kids and they said, okay, here's the deal. This NCAA equestrian thing, it's great. It's really hard to get in. There's very few spots. We can take the best of the best because we have so many kids who want in. It's not for everyone. It's a ton of work. Being a D1 athlete is a grueling experience. You're up at 4:30 in the morning and you don't go to bed until 10 or 10:30 at night, and you're exhausted all the time. And that's not for every kid. That certainly was not my college experience. And
Right.
they talked to us about what to ask the coaches when a kid is really interested. Ask the coach, how many spots do you have? How many seniors are you losing? What positions do they play, basically? Um, how many kids are you looking at? Who's on your roster of strong recruits? If they tell you they have 2 spots and they're looking hard at 20 kids, you're probably not going to make it. Like, move on to the next school.
Okay.
Um, and those were great things to hear because I felt like I had been empowered with this information. So she was there for 3 days. They hang out with the kids on the team, they ride, they do chores. And Samantha came out of that saying, I want to be on an NCAA equestrian team. So
Okay.
at that point, she started to own her experience a lot more. She reached out to coaches. She had her videos all set to go.
Now when you say videos, Elizabeth, you mean from showing or
Yes.
at home too? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything like that. Anything from, again, like anything from a clinic, a lesson that she's taken with another trainer, riding different horses. Um, that I feel like has evolved to the point where there is quite a bit of information online for parents to figure out. But this is why it's important to get your videos. Like, that's one of those things.
Not just for YouTube?
Yeah, it's good to have them. It's good to have some pictures, and that's much easier to do today. So Samantha started reaching out to coaches, and she came home from school one day and she said, the Baylor coach wants to talk to you. And I'm thinking to myself, Baylor, I don't even know, like, where is it? Waco, Texas. And I'm thinking
Oh
to
my
myself,
God.
oh, hell no. Like, we live in Vermont, kid. Waco,
Yeah.
Texas. So I got on the phone with the Baylor coach, and I'm feeling like $1,000,000 because I know the questions to ask. And so I say to the coach, so how many spots do you have? She says, I have 2 spots that I have to fill. I said, oh, what's your deadline to fill those? She said, I need to fill those in the next month. Like, I really, it's second semester. I need this done. I said, okay. I said, how many kids are you looking at? Seriously. She said, I have a list of about 10 kids that I'm giving a hard look to. I said, great.
Okay.
I said, where would you rank Samantha in that list? She said, she's definitely in the top 3.
Okay.
And I said, shit. We have to go to Waco.
Yeah, so how do you try out? Like, I have a friend whose kiddo is in theater and he has to go audition. But do you
Yes,
just
yes.
go ride their horses?
This is going to be the most shocking revelation to any horse mom ever. But this is when they pay to send your kid down there.
What?
This is what's called an official visit.
Okay. Okay.
And that's NCAA talk. Ethan went on a bunch of them too for lacrosse.
Okay.
So yeah, Samantha's trip was paid for. We of course had to pay for ours, no problem. So we fly to Waco, Texas, and we spent 3 days there. Same deal. Samantha spent a night with the girls on the team. The coach gave us a tour, told us about the program, told us about her coaching. You don't ride while you're there, so there's no official
Oh,
tryout. They're really
okay.
just basing it on your videos and how they perceive the kid. And it was great. I mean, we had a great time. We loved the coach. The coach was gone, by the way, before Samantha even made it to Baylor. That's another thing that parents should know, is that the head coach position is usually pretty stable. The assistant coaches rotate like crazy. We went through
Okay.
3 in Samantha's 4 years on the team, and it's not uncommon with Ethan playing lacrosse at the Air Force Academy. It was the same exact thing, because those
Okay.
assistant coach positions, you need several of them before you can be a head coach.
Okay.
So people
They're
don't tend
turning
to stick
over.
around. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
exactly. So, we were fortunate. So Samantha was offered a scholarship. It was not a lot in the beginning, and expect that. Like, they may offer you 10, 20% of tuition. And
Tuition.
Baylor was like $65,000 a year. I mean, it was a ton of money. But at that point, the gates are kind of open and you can have honest conversations with the coach. You can say, look, we can probably swing this for 1 year, but is there any potential that this can increase? Because if it can't, this is probably not the school for her. And
Yeah.
that's when you're going to start to get an idea of, how does this work? How badly does the coach want her? Because they're given a pot of money and they can divide it any way they want to. So if they have a kid they really want, they're going to give that kid a ton of money. And then they'll try to give other kids what they can. Also know that being an NCAA athlete at a school is a totally different experience than being a traditional college kid, especially at a private school where there's a little bit of money. Samantha ate at a dining facility that was only for athletes.
Yeah.
Samantha had an apartment from day one with her own bedroom and her own bathroom. That alone would have completely changed my college experience. She did not go wait in line for books. Her books were delivered to her. She had as much free tutoring as she could stand, and she had a designated spot in the athletic building to go to for tutoring. And in the beginning, as a freshman, she was required to log a certain number of hours there. So they're really going to protect her academic experience, which really made a huge difference for Samantha. So there's a lot of other benefits that go with it. There's
Yeah.
tons of like leadership training that they do separate. Samantha ended up going on 2 mission trips, one to Brazil and one to South Africa, as part
Okay.
of that NCAA experience. So there's so much more that goes into it. But at the same time, I want to add that it is grueling. And if your kid isn't committed,
Yeah.
expect crying phone calls, expect her saying, I want to quit. That's all part of it.
Do you feel like the coaches are able to do a pretty good job weeding those kids out, the ones who won't cut it? I mean, based on what they've seen them do before.
I would say yes and no. NCAA is not like the barn at home where it's competitive, but everybody wants to have fun. NCAA, they're there to win. And
Yeah.
they want to build a championship team. So if you can't hack that environment, don't even
Yeah.
bother showing up.
So when you look back at it, was it all worth it?
I say yes. It's funny, Paul, when I asked Paul that question last night, he said, tell her to look at our countertops and then answer that question.
Nice.
Because our house has definitely not had the updates it deserves. And Samantha's 28 now. She lives in DC. She's working at a think tank. She has a master's degree in national security and international relations. NCAA gave her a $10,000 scholarship for grad school because of her academic success at Baylor. Being at Baylor, she joined the Model UN Club, which I don't know if she would have done that someplace else. And that ended up dictating her career path.
Okay, does she still ride now? Please tell me she's in DC and rides.
No.
What?
However, I know. It's so funny. I told her the other day that I was up really early in the morning outside and it smelled like horse shows. And I told her that. And she told me it was a trauma response. But I want to say, too, that one of the great things that came out of Samantha going to Baylor was that in our community here in Vermont, as small as it is, there's at least 8 other girls who have now gone on to ride D1.
Yeah.
So it's been phenomenal to see these kids go and have that experience at another school and just blossom into adults who are
Yeah.
just so much better prepared for the real world.
Yeah.
It's really great. So
Yeah.
if you have the right kid, if it's right for them, you're going to know because there's so many points in the process where they're going to have to say, no, I want this. This is what I
Yeah.
want.
It's an active decision. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. This has been awesome, Elizabeth. Before we wrap up, we do want to share our weekly trainer truth bomb with our listeners. So I haven't shared it with you yet. I'm going to read it. So this is something given to me anonymously from a trainer. It's a little lengthy, but I think it's super relevant actually for this episode. So the trainer says, horseback riding is a 100% commitment sport. As trainers, we dedicate every bit of our energy, time, finances, and literal oxygen to take care of our families, facilities, and to progress our programs. Most of us also have families that we don't spend nearly as much time with as we do with our clients and animals. On the flip side, we understand that many students have different hobbies or sports that they participate in. But if horseback riding is treated as just an extra thing to do in your week, then you can't expect a trainer to dedicate more than that amount of energy right back. If you're all in for me as a trainer, I will give it back to you tenfold. I will make opportunities happen for you. But if you decide to take a step back for other reasons, I will totally understand, but I can't extend extra opportunities or hold space for someone not willing to put in the time, energy, and money to fill it. It's not fair to others or to the trainer to have an imbalance in dedication. Horses deserve 100% commitment from anyone who chooses to spend time with them because even though they may be good at and enjoy their jobs, they didn't ask to be here. What are your thoughts?
I love it. It's all true. She's 100% right.
Yeah.
Trainers do give their blood, sweat, and tears to what they do. You have to be dedicated, and you can't expect your trainer to be bending over backwards for your kid if they're just showing up for once a week lessons.
Well, and I actually look at that from a parent's perspective too, of I'm not going to put more time and energy into this sport than Chloe is. And I've told her before, I love that my role is almost having to hold her back rather than push her forward. I got an email a couple of months ago from a broke horse mom, and she was struggling with figuring out, how much do I push my kid? And I get it. Like, my experience has been very different. I haven't had to push, but I do think this is not one of those sports. I don't think pushing a kid to do more is necessarily going to end well for anyone, them, the horse, the program. It's too much, like this trainer said, of a
Yeah.
100 really and 20% commitment sport.
Absolutely. And the other thing is it's dangerous. This is
Yeah,
a
that's what I
dangerous
mean.
sport. Yes, 100%. I had the most hilarious experience once with another mom who I loved. And her daughter was fanatic, an outstanding rider, outstanding. And she said, I'm not really sure I'm going to let Sonny jump 3.6. That was like, jumping from 3 foot to 3.6 is a huge leap in commitment, in ability, in the kind of horse you can ride, who can even do that. And I started laughing. I was laughing. I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. She's like, "What's so funny?" I said, "Chrissy, that train left the station like a year ago. Have you even
Yeah.
noticed?" She said, "No, I can't watch. It's too scary." I was like, "Oh my God, girl." I'm like, "She's been jumping 3.6 for a year. You're done. Like, you are done. You aren't even in control anymore."
No. I mean, yeah, God, it's like such a testament, and giving up pieces
Yes.
of control is so hard.
Yes. And get educated. If you're a mom and your kid is into this, get educated because you don't want a trainer. You don't want to end up with the wrong trainer. You don't want a trainer to pull the wool over your eyes and go buy things you don't need. And you want to understand the things that your kid is passionate about. Take those opportunities in the car. You're going to spend a long time in the car together. And those are
Mhm.
great opportunities to have conversations that kids don't want to have.
Yeah.
Find those moms and dads who have had this experience before because they'll be your best advocates.
Well, we will keep you as one of our OG broke horse
Please.
moms for sure. Elizabeth, thank you for your time, your insight. If listeners do want to connect with you, where can they do that?
Sure, I would love that. If people have questions about anything, please feel free to reach out. The easiest way to get me is on LinkedIn. I'm just Elizabeth Howell, and they can send me a connection request and happy to chat.
Perfect. I will put that link in the show notes. I so appreciate you
Great.
being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angie.
Friend, thanks for listening to Broke Horse Moms, the podcast for all of us who swore this was just a phase. Want more? Head to brokehorsemoms.com and sign up for our virtual Barn Family newsletter. That's where I share behind the scenes extras, show season survival tips, gear recommendations, and horse mom life hacks. Basically, it's everything I wish someone had told me when Chloe first said she wanted to try horseback riding. I'll see you there.